Rev, why don't we just start off by talking a little bit about your history, how you started in Texas, and then you're a photographer, and then started getting involved in the bigger productions.
Yeah, so in 2006, I got an offer to move out to California and become an on-staff photographer for a sports agency, an MMA sports agency, which back in 2006, MMA was still in its infancy. So a company called MMA Agents paid to move me out here, and I spent the next decade pretty much working as a photographer, a working photographer, until that's gotten to be an oversaturated market. And I ended up having to close my studio that I'd had for 7 years in downtown Long Beach and start consolidating things because my studio rent was like $3,300 a month. So there was times when I didn't even think about it. You know, when money's good, you don't even think about it. But then as things dwindled and I lost the Getty contract and some other things, it just became too much. It became a burden to be able to be sweating, having to make that rent every month. So I started looking at something else to do. And at my age, it's not that easy just to jump out of one profession into another one. And I'd spent over a decade building my reputation and career in LA as a photographer, a commercial photographer. Luckily, I had worked as a photographer with some pretty famous people. And one of those people is a good friend of mine. And he started asking me, well, what would you really want to do if you could do something else? And I was like, well, you know, I moved out here. When I moved out here, I wanted to be a set photographer and, you know, do like movie posters and that kind of thing. And that was a door that had never been open to me. And he said, well, you know, I have a really good friend who's a really famous producer, or not a famous producer, but a really popular producer in Hollywood. And he's starting on a new show. Would you like to go and talk to him and maybe he can get you on that show? And I was like, for sure. So he set up the interview, and the producer's name is Brad Simpson. I went in and met with Brad. He's done movies like World War Z and all kinds of stuff. He's been in the business since the 90s. And I went in and interviewed with him. He's from Arkansas. I'm from Texas. We seemed to hit it off at that time, and I jumped on a show. Super with cool. No production assistant experience at all. And
that was the first taste that you had as being a PA?
As a PA.
Oh, okay.
I had actually worked on the sets of CSI Miami and an ABC show called Life on Mars. I shot the pilot. I shot all the stills for all the advertisement and the promotion for the pilot and their EPK. And then I had planned on being a set photographer. But to get into the local 600, as you know, it's like $6,000 to pay your dues to get into that thing. And at the time, I had the money, but I actually decided to buy equipment instead. Mm-hmm. You know, you're always weighing one or the other. And I was like, well, I need the equipment. If I'm going to get into it, I need the equipment. And once I bought the equipment, I didn't have the in anymore to get back into the local 600. So that dried up pretty quick. I thought once I invested in the equipment, I'd be able to jump in and that door had closed.